It's Christine Wilson and Saphira Galoob, and you'll thank us later. Tune in every week and hang out with us because we're a lot of fun.
And no topics off the record, we decided. We are open to talking about everything together with a bit of a sense of humor, a lot of self-forgiveness, a lot of grace, and always being wiser on the other end. Bring it on, girls and boys.
You know what? You'll thank me later that I'm telling you about this. You'll thank me. They're going to hate us, Saphira. It's going to be nuts. Good morning. I'm so excited. Saphira, we have a guest today.
I'm thrilled about this guest because, one, we've been talking about her if her ears have been burning, but she's come with a subject matter expertise that is going to dramatically benefit me now and me going forward. So no pressure, Karen.
No
Thanks for
pressure. Well, Courtney and Nicole and I have had the pleasure of working with Karen for many years. We have followed her along with all of her organizations. She is a nonprofit CEO that goes around and basically fixes up nonprofits and then goes on and fixes the next one, with an amazing background in children's museums. And so currently she is the CEO, executive director, CEO of the Children's Museum of the Low Country. And that is in Charleston, South Carolina, for those who don't know where the Low Country is. Which is so fun. And Nicole and I get to work with Karen closely on all children's museum related marketing, which is way more fun than a lot of the stuff we do. But I'm going to let Karen tell you a little bit more about her background. But I met her when she was the CEO of the Leadership Center for Excellence in Arlington, Virginia. And we got to teach classes through COVID together. And wow, if you're going to bond with somebody, that's the way to do it. And one of the things that she taught in the class was what we're going to talk about today. So that's why I wanted to bring her on. We brought it up last week in an episode, and I said, duh, we should bring the person who knows what she's talking about. So Karen, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm flattered to be here. I appreciate that buildup. I hope I can try to live up to that. But I just got done teaching this material. My side hustle is an adjunct faculty member at the College of Charleston in the business school and the ed school. But in the business school, I kind of used this when I taught business leadership and society for juniors and senior business majors there. And I was so excited to teach this to college students because they really they understood in their finals. They had to talk about what they had gained over the semester, one of the questions, and this was the piece that they planned to take with them. And it gave them a framework for thinking about people they work with. So I know it works. And when you and I did this during COVID, we did it with high school kids, and they could get it. So I tell the college kids, look, you need to get this because I taught it to high school kids, and they were able to totally wrap their heads around it. So,
well, I stole it and put it into a presentation that I did at UVA for teaching college kids how to build their personal brand on LinkedIn for when they graduated. So I've been stealing your material for years. So thank you.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, yes, that stuff you had was my material, but I want to give attribution too, because now that I'm an academic, right, and as an adjunct faculty member, you're supposed to give attribution, and I'm pulling a lot of what a lot of this is from an introduction that was made to me. Probably the best thing that happened to me while I was at the Leadership Center. There were two great things. I met Christine.
Yeah.
That was number one. Number two was being introduced to Dr. George Watts and his partner, Lori Blazik. They were, it was kind of cool the way I met them because my board chair was head of federal for Accenture, which is, a huge consulting firm to the federal government and to companies. And they have, really unlimited resources for leadership training and that type of thing. And the introduction was, I know you think about leadership training, Karen, all the time. It's what you do. And I know that these guys are amazing, what they do. And I want you two to know each other. And George and I just really clicked, and we figured out because he can do a personality assessment. It's like magic. I keep trying to look behind the curtain and get him to tell me what he does, and he's not going to do that. But he has a doctorate in, psychological counseling. He can see all that, and an entire career. After he got that degree, he ended up not staying in the academic world, but he went into the business world. And so what he did was marry this academic side of understanding how personality is structured, human personality. There's 5 dimensions, the big 5 you were talking about on the podcast before.
That's it.
And that's I'm never going to say anything is settled science, but that is it's been the gold standard of how scientists look at human personality, these 5 dimensions. And so I envision 5 lines. Okay. And
Yeah.
so everybody thinks about introvert, extrovert, right? One's one end of the line. You're somewhere, we're all somewhere. There's what infinite number of points on a line, right? Somewhere
Right.
in there. Same for the next one, same for the next one, of the 5 dimensions. So we're all unique. We get told that, right? We're little unique snowflakes. We are. Our personalities have bits of all of the dimensions. And it's that combination that drives our behaviors. And once we kind of understand that a little bit better, you really get to know yourself, which is vital, but you can also start to understand the behaviors of other people and they start to make perfect sense.
You mean why I knew exactly how friends of mine might score on the test? Because you start to recognize, once you're familiar with the test, you start to recognize their personality. You're like, I think I know how you're going to score.
And that's what I literally did with the college kids, was have them start to interact with each other and be able to predict what they were seeing in the behavior. So they did group projects, and then they had to evaluate using the Big 5 model how the different groups came together. And George's real contribution to the science, in my humble opinion, there are 2 things. One is he really emphasizes Carl Jung's sort of concept of shadow behaviors. So I am a high open-minded when we get to that explanation of that dimension. And I can see around corners, I can see vision, I can imagine how to disrupt an industry. Those are the kinds of things my brain goes to. I can't find my keys. And so this is, to my husband, who is like you, high conscientious, who he's dismayed for nearly 40 years now and says, why don't you go to where you put them down?
Right.
Like, how would I ever know where I put them down? If I knew where I put them down, I'd already have them back. I don't think of these things. And so once you kind of understand how personality is structured, you can see these behaviors and you can attribute them. And the nice thing about that is it's not Karen's personal shortcoming per se. It's that the shadow of my wonderful trait, which is the ability to see around corners, is that I can't see the real things right in front of me oftentimes. When I walk into a cruddy, rundown building, I can't see the crud in the rundown. I see what it can be. He sees the crud in the rundown. We make a nice combination. So George brought Jungian thinking to because you get strength finders, which is one a lot of people use these personalities, focus on your strengths. That is one of the reasons why leadership programs, they think we spend so much money in corporations, billions of dollars a year. That was actually my master's thesis on how much we spend on leadership programming. And yet we don't really see the outcome. And his hypothesis, and I tend to agree with this, is that it doesn't, you're not looking at the shadows, and it's the shadows that are really going to trip you up. It's where you probably need to look.
I can see Saphira nodding on this. Do you see her? She's like, oh, this is explaining so much.
Well, and Karen, I'll tell you, in my house, I can say I can build a rocket to the moon, but do not ask me where I put the keys to get into the door of the rocket. That is what I say pretty consistently. And my husband would say, your husband's a little bit more gentle. My husband would say, why are you so smart in so many areas? And this you're just an idiot on.
Oh, no, Mai would say that too. He's just
you're
a great husband this week. So I'm being gracious. But yes, that is, I've got the same.
Well, and I will say, I would like to put 2 questions in the parking lot, and we may not get to these today. One, I'm so curious about how the theory of George and then Jungian also is different between women and men in leadership. That is a curiosity to me. And then I'm curious if there's a way to do kind of organizational dynamics, because I'm in a very dynamic organization now. And the way the personality traits of an organization are impacting the culture and the movement and the paralysis. And I mean, if someone said, okay, if you didn't have to make any more money and you just wanted to stop what you're doing now and this is something I'm so fascinated by.
Okay, well, let's pull them out of the parking lot because I can take them quickly.
Okay.
The first one, gender, does not play in.
I am so
It really
surprised
does
by that.
not. It
Really?
really does not. No, and they can, I mean, around the edges slightly, but no, because if you take me as a high open-minded, I'm a high open-minded extrovert. You put me with a guy who's a high open-minded extrovert, we are going to behave very similarly, very similarly. Now, around, when I say around the edges, I'm socialized as a female. I tend, Christy knows this about me. I tend to like not negotiate salary, and because I'm a female and I'm an old female, and so I'm like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I'll thank you for anything you'll give me. Yet my husband's dismayed because he's like, my God, when you negotiate a lease for the children's museum's building, you can take a grown man to the ground. Why can you not do this for yourself? So that's where I see gender show up in some of the socialization, but that's not really personality per se, that's
More
driving
culture and
that.
environment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, you're gonna be much more like well, Christine, will pick on her. She is a extrovert, high conscientious, high extrovert. Those two fused together. So a gentleman who's like that, she's gonna be very aligned and understand their behaviors are gonna look much more similar than she's gonna look or like another woman who is a high agreeable, high, pick one, open-minded. That's, she's going to find more alignment personality wise there. So, but I interestingly, and so to get to your organizational part of the question, and I'll finish up with George because they kind of are the same thing. George's contribution was the Jungian piece, combined with the strengths, but also since he had a business career, he started to see, he knew the business transaction cycle, and he started to see the alignment. And he's been the first one. He just wrote a book, the first business book ever published by the American Psychological Association, which is quite an accomplishment, where he married up the big five with the business transaction cycle. So the big five include open-minded. Oh, I got a hand on my thing because I raised my hand, I think. I must be on Christine's Zoom. But
I've got the reactions set on Zoom.
yeah, I know. You get when you run the transaction cycle, somebody's got to come up with the idea of of the product. So, Saphira, I'm guessing that would be you. Able to do that. That's mine too. But that marries up with a high open-minded. You're seeing things that aren't there yet. You're envisioning. You get that. The next one down the transaction cycle is once you envision a product, you got to go get people excited about that product and sell it. That's where you want the extroverts. Okay, so if I would hire Christine to sell ice cubes to Eskimos, as they say, high extrovert.
I was 100% extrovert.
Right. Yeah. And
You were 100%?
100%.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
100%.
usually off the chart on extroversion too. So living in those quadrants. Then the next one down with your product, your transaction cycle, you've drummed up the product, you've got customers. Now you've got to build partnerships with your customers. So that's where your high agreeables come in. You want someone who can really partner there. Not me. That's not me. I've done the kill up front. I want to be done and on to the next thing. Somebody else comes in and keeps that relationship. Like I've been in fundraising for years. Donor stewardship doesn't excite me like being out on the ask for the gift. So that's one the next cycle. So then you've got to actually deliver this product, whatever this product is. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to have Nicole do that on this call. I don't know how she does it. I am in awe that nothing falls through cracks. I mean, do you have no cracks? How does that work? But that's, I'm amazed at people who have that because I so do not have that. Christine has that high conscientious piece. So conscientious, you're building the mousetrap. Okay. Then finally, it's emotionally stable versus sort of nervous, neurotic at the other end. That emotionally stable, high dimension person can look at this whole process with no emotion or little emotion and evaluate. And that's your transaction cycle. And then whatever that evaluator comes up with, you send back over to the open-mindeds to do the iteration and growth of the product, and the cycle continues. So it's probably not coincidental that the dimensions of human personality match up with our transaction cycle in business, which we as humans created. So, but that seeing those is when you understand that, Saphira, that's where organizational stuff starts to really make sense. And you can actually team build to some degree around this. I am always in desperate need of a Nicole.
And I've got two. I've got Nicole and Courtney. I'm so lucky.
There you go. I mean, and which makes sense for
I'm
you.
bragging right now, but you guys both benefit from each other.
Yes, I benefit greatly from it and appreciate it every day.
And Courtney supports Saphira, so you two are well supported.
So anyway, that's kind of the cycle. So when you're talking about human personality, you know there's downsides in those shadows. That's where you can actually do the work, because it is the shadows that gets us in trouble. I'm an extrovert. I know there's extroverts on this call. You can already tell we talk too much. We suck the oxygen out of the room. We can. There are shadow behaviors to that. We are, self-centered. We don't always ask questions and listen well. So that's where, like, I try to spend some time and work on myself. And what I tell anyone I'm training in leadership, the first thing I always say is leadership is not anything to do with followers. Everybody thinks it's all about, I got to get my followers when I lead. No, no, no. Leadership, all the work is on yourself. When you can get those shadows as faint as possible in all those dimensions, you have matured psychologically, and you are going to be someone everyone wants to follow.
That was the biggest thing for me. I think it was around maybe in my 30s. I think someone professionally said something like, you don't always know the answers. And I was like, yeah, I do. What do you mean I don't? And it was like it was a very reflective moment. And am I good at it? Not even good at it, but at least I'm aware, and I try. I try to stop the railroad of Christine just coming through the room and telling everybody how it's going to be and how it's going to be done. And I've told my team, it's really hard for me when someone is extremely introverted and they don't speak up right when I ask a question. They need time to process or to think about it. I'm like, I almost have to fill the air, the space. Those are big things that I constantly try to work on. Would I get an A grade? Probably not. But I'm at least, I don't think for the first 20 or 30 years of my life I was even aware of it. I just kind of barreled ahead and was the loudest in the room, said the most, had the most opinions. So it is something in my adult life and my professional life that I'm constantly working on. And I'm sure that Nicole and Courtney have actually seen moments where I've been like, nope, nope. And then I've taken a deep breath and I've pulled back a little bit, or I've had to come back and say, you know what? I wasn't right about that. Because I am trying, and I think trying is about all I can do at this point, because it's so not in my nature. It's like a fight against me every time.
Yeah. And it's, I think to frame it, and if you frame it as a fight, it feels like a fight, it's growth. I mean, what it really is growth. And so part of why I think most leadership programs stink is because they try to hold up a leader and go, oh, take a case study. I know you're teaching at UVA, business school. They're running cases all the time. When I was there, I didn't go there. I had a 2-week summer mini MBA thing, but it was all cases, and you're studying leadership. And it was, it always hit me, but if you're not we get a lot of credit for being leaders when you're an extrovert, and it's so unfair, because that's people's vision of what leadership looks like. Oh my gosh, she can get up on a podcast and talk, or, quick on her feet. It looks like leadership. But the real leaders oftentimes are those quiet ones that are sitting back there watching what's going on. But if you think about that transaction cycle again and think about what you're strong at, I would not be a leader in a library. Don't put me in one. It would be a really bad choice for me. Forest ranger, probably not my area where you're going to get the best out of me. There are people whose personalities work really well at that. You want me selling some kind of vision, and I I started out in banking because I took a Myers-Briggs test. I worked my way through college at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia. And everybody had to take a Myers-Briggs, and this was the 80s, so we weren't as, good back then. And they would carve your Myers-Briggs letters the wood carver in the park would carve it, and they'd make it and put it on your desk.
Oh God, you were
And
like,
I was young, and I took the test, when very young. I was, I think, 19 when I did it, and I was very heavily influenced by my boss, who I adored and loved, and she was a very detail-oriented person. So I answered the questions not really authentically because I didn't even know who I was yet, but I answered them in a way I thought she would want me to answer them. So she couldn't tone down my extroversion. She was an introvert, but I tested out like her in that test, but I wasn't.
yeah,
And I
thought that's what you should be.
I thought that's what I should be because that's what she was, and she was amazing. And so anyway, this really scarred my career, to be honest. It gave me a bad start out of the gate because I thought, well, I'm majoring in economics. I'm really good at detail. I should be a banker. And so I go into the bank and I hate it from the first day. I love the people, hate the bank, hate the work. And eventually they administer a Myers-Briggs test. I'm like, I don't need to take it. I have it carved in wood. I know what I am. And they're like, nope, nope, we're going to make you take it again. Now I'm 6 years older. I take it, and a couple of my letters changed.
Oh
And
yeah.
of course, the whole room are made up, if you know Myers-Briggs, they're all ESTJs and ISTJs. I'm married to one of those. He was a banker for years. So again, that's the perfect profile. However, when my letters changed, it popped up to kind of get to more my intuitive side. That open-minded kind of stuff started to come out. And everybody in the room was teasing me, infinitely teasable, but also, it was just weird because everybody had the same profile but me. And the facilitator was great, very kind, and said, "Are y'all done teasing her? She does have the same Myers-Briggs score as one other person in the bank." And
President.
they were like, "Yeah, CEO."
See ya.
The CEO and I had the same makeup, and that shut the crowd down. I got enough self-respect to be able to crawl out of the room. And 3 years later, I went to work for my alma mater in development, influencing, hopefully connecting donors, using all that extroversion, and I was a major gifts officer. I ran the annual fund. That was, and I was like, this is the type of work I should be doing, not, the process work, which I'm just not built to do. So I have a particular passion to teach this, particularly to young people, because I don't want them to have the toe stumble I did coming out of the gate into my career.
I think that's huge. And, the fact that, Saphira, we work with people that are early on in their careers, getting to talk to college people. I don't know. Saphira, did you do Myers-Briggs when you were coming out of school?
I didn't.
Good, don't.
Yeah, I don't think it's the best of the tests.
Well, and admittedly, I don't think I did my very first test until I started working with a leadership coach, and we did a different test, and I could look to find what it was. It was very comprehensive and significant, and had a lot of iterations to it, and it was incredibly insightful. I don't think I committed it to memory as much, and I probably need to do a lot more work. The shadows thing really speaks to me because one of the things that this test doesn't reveal, but I'm sure it's within the analysis, is that, and I think I shared with you that, I am 100% extrovert, 85% openness, 58 and 58 conscientiousness and neuroticism, and 42% agreeable. So what I have to tell you about with regard to that makeup is that I don't know that is revealed, at least in the overview, is that I don't want to admit and acknowledge my shadows.
Yeah.
Well, there are no shadows in my world. I am all light.
Yeah. The shadow, that's where the growth can happen because we can grow in that.
No, but what I'm saying is that there is a problem or a trait wherein I don't want to acknowledge. And I'll give you an example. I'm in an organization. I was running my own organization. It was merged with another organization that also had an executive director. And that executive director is very process oriented, very much like just run the traps, not a creative bone in the person's body. They don't listen to this podcast. They don't really freaking care. But my point is, like, I want to admit that I do everything better than this person, not just my light, but that person's shadows. And so I have a humility dilemma that I think it shows weakness that I can't do all of the things all the time the very best.
Well, I'm reading right now from George and Lori's book. I have it here, and I'm looking at the shadows for the open-minded, because you were very high open-minded. The open-minded person's arrogance and unfocused nature make them a challenge to work with. That's when it's very that's the shadow. That can be. If that shadow is big and strong, that's the open-minded. For the extrovert person's poor listening skills and their ego need for constant validation make them difficult to be around. Right? Okay. So yes, but facing it is where you grow, because you can't grow until you can do that. So, well, we're not going to let everybody off the hook. Do I know I have a high agreeable here? Is that you, Nicole?
Nicole.
Nicole.
That's me.
Courtney, were you too?
I can share. Well, so I don't know if
too.
it's high or not. I just, but I can share mine.
I'll text you mine, Karen.
So for our agreeable friends, and my sister is a high agreeable. She was just here. Our mother was ill, and she's I've spent time with her, and she's an agreeable off the chart. She's actually not taken the test, but I don't need her to. She is Courtney's a 75, I think I see there on agreeable. The agreeable person's inability to say no and overly accepting nature cause them to be easily manipulated. I could fill your podcast with stories, and I love my sister dearly, but my mother could manipulate her. If I used my powers for evil, I could, and she knows this, and she's trying. I've seen growth over the years in that. But so let's get to the conscientious person, because that's who's driving Saphira crazy over that she's talking about. And so, because everybody has the shadow. That's the nice thing about it, which lets you face it, I think, because it's there. Conscientious person's rigidity and inflexibility make them difficult to engage in a collaborative dialogue. And I'll give you an example of how this showed up for me one time in a group. We had a senior team at the Children's Museum up in Virginia where I was. And it's a children's museum. There are a lot of open-minded that tend to congregate in spaces like that, right? And we had one person who was a conscientious off the chart. And we would start to brainstorm ideas, and she would immediately come in that session. And see, we loved it. We all said, this is our favorite hour of the week that we had this meeting where we
were wild ideas.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I looked so forward to that. It was Mondays. I still remember. I loved all that. And we get in there, and it would end up being a bummer. And this person would just come, tell you all the reasons why it wasn't going to work, whatever you were thinking. And another open-minded person in the room came to me as the CEO and said, I want her out of the meetings. And of course I was like, well, but you want this diversity, you want this. And then she really helped teach me. And she said, she's shutting down my thinking. And I was like, whoa, you're right. Because there is a process and a time. So you go back to that transaction cycle, and there is a process and time. You should have all that. You don't bring in all the reasons why you can't do it. And then you add in the fact that people that tend to have minds that work like artists, you squash their process. So the more you understand about this type of thing, that person who can shoot holes in all the ideas, you want that person. Just where do you want them and when? Because if you put me and Christine in a room, we'll blah, 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 and we'll end up some weird way. And Nicole's like, well, you can't do that because of this, and you can't do that because of that. We want that. We just want it.
We want it after we came up with all the ridiculous ideas.
Yes.
So Karen, let me tell you a little bit about my superhero friend, Saphira. I call her a superhero. And you two remind me of each other in this. You get these big, crazy ideas, and you just plow forward without necessarily worrying about where the roadblocks are going to be or the speed bumps. And you both find conscientious people along the way to help you get over the roadblocks when you get to them. But you're already so far down the road that you're like, sorry, somebody's going to just have to help me get over this block because I got to keep going. I've got such a big idea. And I say this all the time. I'm like, Saphira has done so many things that I've said I can't before I even started. I can't live in Europe. I can't travel to Asia in the middle of the year. I can't do these big things because they're scary, overwhelming, impractical, blah, blah, blah. And Saphira's like, I'm going to do it. I'll figure out a way. I'm going to just head on down the road. And then I do think sometimes she's like, oh shit, look at that roadblock. Had no idea that was going to be there.
But she's already blown through it.
Yeah. She's like, when she finds conscientious people to help her blow through it. And I think you do that a lot too, Karen, in your organizations. You're like, I'm going to make it this big, amazing thing. The budget's not going to be crazy. And when I hit this problem with, membership cards, these conscientious people will come in and figure it out for me.
That is true. And I know, Saphira, I think you're validating what Christine's saying there, because that if you're a high open-minded extrovert, which you are, I am too, that is absolutely right. The interesting thing is there are populations, and there aren't that many high open-minded. That is not, when I did it in my classroom,
Really?
35 people, I think I had 3.
That is very, very interesting. I'm going to go back to, I really am curious about the women versus men. I do think I'm just curious about if you do it. So like, let's say you took that 35 people and you split it between women and men. Were your high open-mindedness women or men? I'm just curious.
Split.
1 and 1. Okay.
Yeah, I say it was 3. It was actually 4, because I think Christine knows this. For some reason, the class sat it was one of those, semicircles, and they would sit gender. All the females were on this side of me and all the males were on this side of me. And I would mock them about it, and they still couldn't break it in the classroom because everybody wants to sit where they've normally sat. I'm an open-minded, so I express that sometimes. I will go sit somewhere else to keep that from happening, just to, change stuff. So anyway, it was probably my open-mindedness that was seeing it and pointing it out. But really, there isn't. But I was going to say the small number of open-minded, my theory is you do not want a bunch of people like us. It's very helpful to have 1 or 2 sprinkled in, but a ton of us in the room can't get a damn thing done. And
we just keep dreaming up amazing inventions that nobody would ever build.
Right. Right. I mean, it was funny because George, Watts, who wrote the book, is he's my unofficial executive coach myself, and because he did the full-on survey of me, and when he was giving me my results, I remember we were on the phone, we were not on a Zoom, and I literally caught myself looking backwards, and I thought, oh, what a weird thing I just did. I felt like he was looking inside me. It was a weird sensation for me because I've never had anyone, I'd had 1 conversation on the phone with this person, and then I took a test. And I'd never felt so seen and in such a naked way, because Saphira, if you go through this process, they'll talk about those darn shortcomings and shadows. And, it's not an easy process. It's not for the faint of heart. Particularly if you've got the high open-minded, because the flip side of that is arrogance. It also is for the high emotionally stable. I wasn't sure if my husband if his conscientious was higher than his emotionally stable. I was trying to figure it out. And I was actually reading some of the descriptor words for the shadows. And when I saw smug, I was like, oh, he's a high emotionally stable. That word goes with the shadow for that.
Because they're not feeling the anxiety and the self-consciousness, right? They're just like, I got it. There's the neuroticism is so low.
Well, his ability to step out of a situation and look at it from above is stunning to me. And just think about it with family dynamics, because his 2 sisters are not built that way. And, family dynamics, people get their, mom says something and gets the sisters wrapped around the axle because they both are structured that way. Rick has this piece. He's just born with it. I don't think it's gender. I think it's just personality structure, but it's so dominant in him. And he's like, why is everybody upset about this? Who cares? Like,
yeah.
Are we
because it's wrong.
Are we married to the same man?
Actually, you know what is so funny? Rick and Gio are very similar, and you two are very similar.
And that is, you see it all the time.
Yeah.
We find the opposite side of the transaction cycle in our relationship.
I would tell you all a little funny, or this is insightful. So I met my husband when I was a second year in law school. And when I first saw him, I was like, I'm super attracted to him, but he had like all the wrong attributes. He was separated, not divorced, not Jewish, living in a small apartment with a combination of cardboard furniture and furniture that he had literally made himself. He had 2 children, and he was barely finished with his BA. And I'm like, overachiever, Jewish woman, want to marry a Jewish person. And I was so attracted to him. And so like at first it was just pure physical. And I was like, I will never fall in love with this guy. He comes over to my apartment. I owned my own condo when I was in law school. It was my big deal because I had worked and I had got my own loan. And he's like, and we were talking about my kitchen, and I convinced him to redo my kitchen floor.
You've been getting him to do projects for the
Well, I mean, and after that moment, I completely fell in love with him. And I do believe that I had this vision, but I couldn't find anybody to do it. And he did it. And I was like, that's my person. And it was a combination. And I excused everything else, not Jewish, still married, 2 kids, not academically, like professionally motivated, terrible taste. Oh, he didn't have bad taste. He just didn't live in anything but he could get my kitchen redone. And I will tell you, we have been working perfectly together ever since.
And now I'm
in my bathroom right now.
I was about to say, how many kitchens has he redone for you now?
You do not want to know the level of my standard of living because my husband's so capable. But I do think that kind of like finding somebody who like fills your shadows is like, it is like the most satisfying thing. And my Courtney and Nicole and my organization shared with me after having worked with me for a while that they are actually diagnosed OCD. And I said, okay, that's a new prerequisite for being able to work on my team. Have you been, medically diagnosed as OCD? Otherwise, I do not want you.
Because nothing will not happen. It'll all get done.
Yeah, yeah. So this is all super, super, not just interesting to me, but a little bit like, how did it take me so long to figure this out? Oh, I have no humility, and I am like a bit of I don't want to use the word narcissist, but like I have a little bit of, okay, this is why I wasn't figuring it out. Oh, got it. Okay.
The arrogance piece definitely is one of those things that actually serves people well a lot of the time, because you just expect that you can do things and you know what you're doing, and you keep doing
it. It does get a bad, arrogance gets a bad rap.
Yeah, you have to be careful
Arrogance
before it goes.
Okay, I have a question, Karen, So just a quick little note about a 13-year moment in my career. I taught women belly dance. And what was interesting about it is I taught women who could not move. I mean, I would say 99% of the women I taught had never put one foot in front of the other on the count of music. So I am literally teaching them how to move their body, and they had no capacity. And to teach an adult woman how to come to terms with, like, the body that they have, why they have their flow for the body they may or may not want. And that was like pre-GLP-1s. So nobody had the body they wanted.
Right. We were all just middle-aged women.
We were all just middle-aged women with like a big center and like heavy arms and, anyway, some of us had skinny legs, but not many. And to try to look elegant. And so I always say that I wasn't in the belly dance business. I was in the business of helping women kind of feel better about the women that they were, or the women that they wanted to be, in a relationship with their body. And so one of the things that I believe I developed over that 13-year period, I think I touched about 15,000 women. I mean, if you look at the number of people who I introduced this art form over that many years, is that there's a real relationship between confidence and competence. And when you're teaching somebody how to develop a confidence in any area, public speaking, their work product, walking into a room, sitting with a group versus not, whatever it is, and actually Christine and I have been kind of developing this little pedagogy that I really have revealed itself to me over this 13 years of teaching dance. Is I have this curiosity on, again, I'm going to go back to the gender side. I know you said that it's not, there's no way.
Not a big influence. There is some influence,
but I'm so
socialization.
I would be so curious in how these numbers line up with a woman. Again, I'm going to say a woman's ability to find her voice or develop confidence or become more comfortable with her own shadows or evolve into attributes that she seeks to evolve into to be a more effective professionally, personally, socially, romantically, all of these things. I'm just so curious about how the personality factors and competence fit in the same puzzle.
No, that's a fantastic question, because I think open-minded women, and this is a hypothesis, this is Karen talking, not the, academics who really know this stuff. My sense is that an higher open-minded female is going to be able to get to a place of confidence faster than some other high personality dimensions. And I say that because the flip side is arrogance. I mean, I remember being a little girl and just not being afraid of a damn thing. And my parents, now I was adopted, my parents looked at me like I had come from Mars or Venus, because they were like, who is this creature? And why is she, I was like, putting my hand out, how are you? Nice to meet you, before I started elementary school. And I wasn't taught that because neither of my parents, they were writers. They were writer people. And so, talking about your mismatch, but that's been my lived experience. I'll go with that. My lived experience is that women who tend to have a high open-minded tend to be a little bit more confident. But again, remember, the flip side of that personality type is arrogance. I mean, we think we got it going on.
Yeah. And we also know the flip side, because Christine and I have also talked about, I don't use the word imposter syndrome, but self-doubt. Self-doubt lives in the shadow of a highly confident person externally has self-doubt in a quiet room.
Well, and I think self-doubt is probably a growth. There's and I'll use my personality type, yours, a dose of self-doubt wouldn't be a bad thing every now and then. We don't like to think about it. We don't like to look at it. Our personalities are that way. But if we can look at it and we can open up to it, we're going to mature in our personality and make that strength will get stronger, that shadow will get weaker, that ego goes down. Because what you're talking about is the ego. And every human has it. It shows up as a self-defense mechanism. And being arrogant really is an ego self-defense thing.
And what about emotion? How does the attribute of being an emotional person fit within? Am I totally hijacking this, you guys? I just have so much curiosity around this.
No, and that's the dimension of emotionally stable. So that's the fifth dimension of it. And if you're highly emotionally stable, you don't experience emotion in the same way as someone at the other end of that dimension. They call it neuroticism, it's a very negative word, but someone who is feeling those emotions very strongly versus someone who's not. And I'll go back to my husband again. I mean, you just don't get a big rise out of him. Now, I freak the heck out when he's watching sports because he will scream at the television, right?
Yeah.
And I think, who the flip cares?
Yeah,
it's
why is this so
game? Why are you
okay, next question.
Mad as a hornet?
Can you teach someone who is highly emotional to not be emotional?
I think you can. It's not my job, and I've never tried to attempt to do it. But actually, we do it all the time with. And I run a children's museum. But with part of what we're training them is how to get in control of their emotions. I mean, part of what's probably ailing the school system is they will tell you the number one predictor of success in school isn't IQ, it's emotional stability, the ability to control executive function, the ability to control your behaviors, or your emotional outbursts and that kind of thing, the ability to focus. It's one of the things we're working on. There's a big move right now for why are our boys and men falling behind young men. And they're taking it all the way back down to preschool and elementary school because most of the teachers are female. Most of the teachers tend to be high conscientious. They might be emotionally stable, and they have an expectation of behavior. And so, again, this is where socialization of gender can cross current with all of this, because little boy behavior at the preschool and early elementary school level looks to a lot of us as abhorrent behavior. Why can't you sit down? Why can't you focus? Why can't you do this?
Medicate it.
And then they inculcate,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not good at school.
Yeah.
That they get that early message and it stays there. And then all kinds of behaviors start to diverge and go into, and life patterns start to diverge because of that. So there's starting to be an emphasis now on how early elementary and preschool teachers are looking at this situation. My son was a typical boy. He was not physical off the charts like a lot of boys, but he was focus wise. He was like, he actually, it was weird. He could focus, but he kind of didn't want to. He was a boy. And he wasn't like a little girl who would sit. If she was told to sit and do art, she'll sit and do art. If she's told to read, she'll read. Again, socialization, all different kinds of personalities. But as it's turned out, I would peg him actually like you and me. He's a high open-minded extrovert. He just wasn't going to sit there,
Yeah.
But as a little
better things to do. Figure out.
Yeah, and happily he was in a Reggio Emilia school. That's a whole nother podcast where they kind of let the students' personality and interest drive the educational curriculum and outcomes. And they were like, told me, "Dad, I could make him sit down," and they were like, "No, we got it. Let him walk around the room." I'm like, but, and they're like, mm-mm. And he was probably benefited from that, and let him grow. But yeah, I'm certainly not saying that personnel or that gender isn't somehow in this, but it lives in the socialization of it, of a human, rather than what we're born with our personality, because these personality traits are pretty stable throughout the life cycle.
Yeah, kind of baked into who you are.
Honestly, I think it's in your genes. The genes determine your hormones and all the things floating around that signal in your body. And I mean, like okay, I hated, this comes from the arrogance part. I hated performance reviews. Hated them.
Yeah.
With a passion, because I didn't want any feedback. And people always kind of felt like, well, we got to say something bad about what you're doing, because
right. Can't say everything good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I would just be like, oh, I'd get those red blotches. And I just remember hating that whole process. And so when I got in charge of something, I was like, they're gone. I wrote long letters and told people what I thought they were good at, bad at. I made sure that I'm doing that regularly, verbally. But I was like, I hate this process of this stress-inducing, sit down, do it. But then I've got this emotionally stable husband who he looks forward every year to his performance review. Right.
He wants feedback. He wants to know. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I kind of learned, okay, well, it's not just me. I have to, because I had people barking at me, I want my performance review. I'm like, I tell you every day.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but it needs to be on a piece of paper. And, high conscientious. I'm going to adapt so I can help that person because they need that.
I turned our performance reviews on their head. I don't enjoy sitting through them, so I didn't like doing them either. So at M2M, they prepare something for me. I don't prepare something for them. And I give them feedback.
That's smart on your part, and yeah.
Yeah, I love it, because the best part is, one, it helps for the folks that are learning how to do presentations and talk to people. They do a presentation. It makes them think through their year. What did they enjoy? What did they think was a real highlight? What did they struggle with? What do they want to grow and develop? And then it's not me going, I think I saw through the Zoom screen that maybe this wasn't working well. The other thing is we're in a virtual environment. So it's not like I'm just walking by and hearing someone mess up on a phone call. It's like the old standards of walking around an office and evaluating people are very different. And I think it's so much more interesting to learn what people say about themselves. Like, what are you proud about? Sometimes they're proud about things that I'm like, but you did that other thing that was so much more visible, and like people were applauding you and the client was so excited, and they're like, yeah, but I'm really proud about the fact that I figured out this thing quietly by myself. And very different than what I would judge, So
yeah,
I found doing it this way lets each person bring out the best of their personality and what they've accomplished. It also, I learn really interesting things about them every time. So I love it. And then I go in and I don't feel stressed out. I also am not good. We just had a whole podcast episode on criticism. I'm not very good at taking criticism, but I also don't really like giving criticism because I know how uncomfortable it makes me. I don't want to make other people feel that way. So, I mean, Courtney and Nicole know this. I'll go to them and be like, this graphic is not right. Can you tell the person who made it? Because I don't want to tell them because I'm a chicken.
Well, and you've also got the dynamic of being the head honcho in your organization. And I think about that too, because I learned the hard way that when I say something, it carries different weight than if somebody else, like a colleague, says it.
Right.
So
It's
a lot of what
scary.
I try to facilitate, particularly if I think growth is possible and would improve things, is I do, probably get faulted for triangulating. But if there's another person that's been impacted by it, I'll say, that'll come better from you than it will from me. Because they'll come to me and say, so-and-so did such and such. I'm like, okay, yes, that was not right. But you know what? It's going to have more meaning if you take it to them than if I do.
Right.
If you feel compelled to tell them that I know this, that's fine. But if I address it, it's punitive, it's scary. They're not going to, all that stuff comes up for people.
Yeah, just because of your title. Yeah.
Yeah.
Courtney, I'm curious. So you were 75 unagreeable. What was your highest number? Was that your highest number?
I can share my screen. I have it pulled up. It's probably easier to just look at it in one glance. Let's see.
I think it's so extroversion. Oh, and conscientious. Oh, you're me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yours was similar.
Yeah. So I'm high. You and I are actually very similar.
Yeah.
So extroversion and conscientiousness are my two highest. I think I even scored 96 on my.
Well, the thing about this is you almost have to flip it. This is out of 100. So they always give you neuroticism. I flip it to the opposite end, emotionally stable. So is that showing up as a 21 or a
27?
27. So the flip of that, of course, is 73. So she would have scored a 73 on emotionally stable. You see what I'm doing there?
Okay.
Yeah, which is almost tied with her agreeableness. That's a really nice, mature profile, honestly. She's pretty much high on all the good stuff. Yeah. But no, she's like you, Christine, except I bet your agreeable's lower.
My agreeable's 54. And
Yeah.
75.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's much lower. I was about to say, and also my neuroticism is higher. And my conscientiousness is not as high as hers. And that's definitely true. And Nicole, what was your conscientious? I bet it's super high.
It was 73. All of mine were really even.
They were, yours were very even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'll tell you, George talks about in this book, he worked with a female CEO, and he absolutely could not peg. Now, he had not done an assessment, but he was just trying to, he does this whole thing where he looks at LinkedIn profiles. Before he meets someone to really try to figure out what their top 2 traits are. And he said he could not nail it. And he sat down and was working with her, and he still couldn't nail it. And, it wasn't until he asked the question, he goes, you should have just had some time off. He said, what'd you do last week on your time off? And she said, I totally redesigned my daughter's bathroom and built it out. And, it was a fusion of 2 different styles, and because that would evoke what I was trying, the mood I was trying to make in the room. And he was like, open-minded, because no person would ever say such a strange thing that wasn't open-minded. And I just heard Saphira doing that too. She's pulling in stuff. Like it's not just belly dancing. She can see the bigger thing of what she's doing for women with confidence, right? So that's when you see someone do that, that is such an open-minded move on their part. And then the other one he saw was that she wanted to do the work herself in the bathroom. She's likely an open-minded conscientious. Which amazing personality structure. So, but when he actually did the test, she was high on every dang thing.
Oh, yeah.
He was high on everything. And he was like, that's such a fully mature person. And she was leading a company. So that makes perfect sense, that she, had made it to the top ranks of a major corporation. So, it just, this tool framework is just, I find it to be exceptionally helpful to advancing my understanding of what I see around me in behavior.
I love it. Well, we're going to leave the link in our show notes so that all of our listeners can take the test for themselves. We basically took the basic test that just ranks you on the 5. You can unlock a much bigger profile, but not encouraging anybody to spend money if they don't want to, but you can get those 5 right off the bat. We will also have a link to George and Lori's book.
Awesome.
I
Yeah, it's
think that's
Becoming a
great.
Strategic Leader.
Becoming a Strategic Leader. It's a really great book, and also I believe it has like a workbook that goes along with it, right? Or things you can do along with it online.
Well, and you'll be very proud of me, Christine, because you're the seeds that you planted. So very early on, God, was it December after ChatGPT came out? I think it was a month after it came out. You were like, let me show you this. Get
You
used
and
to
you and Saphira both. I said to you guys, I'm going to show you the best thing in the world, and guess what? You two have run with it like way beyond me.
because we're open-minded and
I know.
we see
You guys are all over it. I'm like, hold on, wait, you're already way past me.
Okay, so a few months later, George, I'm actually on the back of George's book. I have a quote, and he had asked me to. He and Lori had asked me to take a look at the book and do that, which I was gratefully honored to do. But when the book was coming out, I said, "Good thing you got it to the publisher before ChatGPT can write the whole damn thing anyway." And he's like, "Oh no, it'll be years." And I'm like, "Dude, have you been on this? Let me show you." So I did a share screen, and I showed him. And he had the same thing I did, was like, "Oh, holy heck." Well, again, he's an open-minded extrovert. So he has run with it. And his partner, Lori Blazek, who's so lovely, it does the same thing. She's a high conscientious, high agreeable. They fill in the circle pretty darn well. And she's able to take that vision and ram it through. They already have like a whole AI bot thing. It is off the chart. So if you go to, I think I'll get you the link for that,
Put it in the show.
because there's a cost to it. But if if this is resonating with you, I would take a look at that, because you will look, the understanding of yourself will advance so far that it would take years to figure that stuff out. So having that, I mean, you guys are all already ahead of where you were before you
Yeah.
delved into this, I'm sure, and with more insight and understanding.
Absolutely. And I know we're wrapping up, but I will say I used this big 5 to develop my personal brand messaging, which you led in that class, of like looking at, I was high conscientious, high extroversion, and I came up with a brand statement that says, I'm an influential person that gets things done.
Yeah.
And I use that all the time in my mindset. I'm like, is this portraying me that way? Am I putting myself out there that way? Because that was taking the positives of my, downplaying my shadows, because this is me selling myself, and putting out what I am and how I want the world to see. So I also think about, when I put stuff out with me, am I showing that side? Is it falling in line with my brand statement? So I think it's really helpful. And we've talked about your personal brand on a past episode. And I think it's really important to use this as a way so that you can authentically build your personal brand that really ties to who you are.
Yeah, I agree. Mine is around the ability to influence, because of the open-minded, and or rather the ability to see a vision. And Saphira, yours would probably fall like this: the ability to see a vision and then sell that vision, and through influencing other people. So again, fundraising, perfect place to put me, keep me out of the library, keep me out of, spreadsheets, and keep me over here. Have that happen. And then that I can take what my strength is and get in my lane and go further than I could go in any other way. So I love that you love the branding statement. That, again, is a George and Lori invention out of the book. And they actually give you terms. This is real easy. I did it with the college kids. You pick the terms within each dimension that seem to resonate with you. For me, under extroversion, it was influencer. Interestingly, I'm a high extrovert, but I don't like parties. I never went to a party in college. I also went to the College of William and Mary. We didn't really have them.
You're
in
nerdy.
the 80s, or I didn't get invited to them. But I was working all the time. We'll go with that.
I was at all the parties you guys.
You were at all the parties. That's right. But my particular, when you get more granular into this stuff, my particular brand of extroversion is not showing up at a party. I'd rather have my eyelashes plucked off, and but I want to work in a coffee shop. I don't want to talk to any of these people, but I like them around.
Oh, I'm talking to everybody.
I know.
That's my superpower, by the way. I always, when you do those meetings where you have to draw your superpower so everybody gets to know you, mine is me talking to a stranger in an elevator. I've met more fascinating people in elevators, guys.
It's so funny because my emotionally stable husband, he's the one, he knows everybody on the street, everybody on the east side of Charleston. He can recognize them or their pet,
Yeah.
but not me. And I'm the extrovert and he's not. So it's just personality difference.
Personality. I love it. Well, Saphira, I think you and I should go back and think about how we are going to continue to present ourselves.
Oh, I have
using this-
so many ideas from this. I can't even tell you. Like, I'm like, I've got business ideas. I've got intellectual growth ideas. I'm like,
Yeah, I told you. She's gonna call you, Karen, and be like, when are we writing the book? You guys.
That's fine. Let's go. ChatGPT can write it. We'll just frame our.
because
our
I actually already
prompts.
see an area that hasn't been addressed by anybody yet.
Oh, good. All
But
right.
we'll just leave that for curiosity for later. Aren't you supposed to leave with a little,
Yeah.
hanging, like a little
And Courtney and I, and
hook?
Courtney,
teaser.
Nicole, and I know we'll get the call to, hey, can you guys make this website?
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I love all of your personalities. You guys, I will say, this is like the group of women that influences my week the most. These 4 women, I spend so much time with you all, and you are such a big impact in my life. And thank you all for this fabulous conversation. And I hope our listeners enjoy figuring out their personalities.
And they are going to definitely thank us later.
They are. Thank you, Karen.
Thanks for having me. Saphira, so nice to meet you.
Great to meet you.